I'm Egbert, the owner of this station. Check out my website at egbert.com. That's EGGBURT, egbert.com. Now it's back to Brad and John. Check out their website at bjshow.co. The BJ Show? Come on, guys. Anyway, here's B and J.
And it's so appropriate. I made a guess as to what one of John's top three would be, and most of the time I'm wrong. And in that case, I was wrong. I said last segment, John gave his top three. The one I thought would be in there was not. I threw out a little hint to John, Eric Schmitt, and John said, can I be more vague? Was that what the comment was?
Yeah, can you be a little more vague? Yeah.
Eric Schmitt is in the news because of the fact that he has officially tendered a letter to all the members of the presidential cabinet for them to invoke the 25th Amendment.
Yes, you're right. I saw this, Brad. We forgot. And you know what? I forgot to include that this morning. Go ahead and talk about that.
Well, essentially, if you know what the 25th Amendment is, I believe, if my history serves me correctly, it was put into effect after Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Essentially, it has to do with succession of the president, and more importantly, if the president becomes disabled, how the system works, and not only that, not necessarily, obviously dies or is killed, but essentially becomes ill, who takes over the country. And essentially, the 25th Amendment has a lot of information in it, but one of the aspects of it is that the cabinet members are essentially called together, and they essentially can come to an agreement that the president is incapacitated and that essentially the baton is passed to the vice president. And that's what Eric Schmitt did yesterday. He sent a letter to all of the cabinet members in President Biden's cabinet, essentially saying that they should invoke the 25th Amendment and declare Joe Biden incapacitated and essentially make Kamala Harris the new president.
Yeah, that makes sense, doesn't it, Brad?
Well, there's a lot of people saying this, that if you can't run for re-election, and I think the whole situation that, God, I don't want to sound like I'm a homer as far as the conservatives and things like that, but and especially from the media standpoint, is that now you see as the curtains pulled back, as we make the reference to the Wizard of Oz, is that for a long time this guy has had some serious issues, and let's be honest. And the press has essentially protected him, and obviously his staff has protected him. I mean, when things are getting funky and this happened within the last couple of months, where when he would do that walk, and this is a thing that presidents have done for a long time, where they walk across the lawn to the White House and they get on Marine One, the helicopter, or when he comes back in and gets off Marine One and walks across, and typically with Trump, they would shout questions to him and he would answer, and a lot of times he'd go over and talk to him. With Biden, very rarely would ever address them, but he got to the point where his walk was really funky. And
yeah, of course.
Then what they did was they surrounded him by staff members, so that when he was walking out to the helicopter, they created like this buffer zone where it's almost like a moving shield where you couldn't really see him because his staff members were surrounding him. And you're going like, okay, what's this all about?
Yeah, of course.
I mean,
but I mean, the point is, Brad, let's get back to your original point, which is that many people in the Biden administration knew. And so I think it's a credible theory to have, and that a lot of people in the Democratic Party close to Biden were like, let's see if he can hold up for a couple more months. And if he can't, we'll just replace him. And then, and critics would call that, Brad, a bait and switch.
Well, let's do the Tony Colombo flip test. And for a minute, it's Trump who's the incapacitated president of the United States. The press would be all over him. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
they go,
of course.
Oh,
yeah,
look at him.
But you know what? That's not a surprise too, Brad. And the fact that the media is going to prop up Joe Biden or defend him and then throw him under the bus once they've established that Kamala can be the candidate. I mean, I don't think we're breaking any ground there. I'm not being critical of your statement there, Brad. I'm just saying that nobody should be surprised by that. And think of the number of people inside the Biden administration that left meetings with the president over the last year and went back to their friends, and they didn't put it in writing and they didn't put it in text, and they said, Joe's gone. POTUS is gone. Like his mind isn't there. He was talking about the Delaware beach and ice cream when I was talking to him. He started to fall asleep. Like, people close to the president knew about this, but who's going to say that the emperor has no clothes?
Okay, but here's an interesting theory that has been thrown out there. Do you think that his staff purposely put him out to dry by pushing this this June debate, because in the history of modern presidential elections, there has never been a debate with the candidates who weren't officially the candidates yet because they had not gone through their convention.
And I think that some people definitely on the Democratic side wanted him to go out there and fall short to press the issue a bit. I also think there were well-intentioned people in the Democratic Party who wanted him to go out there and actually it was a real-life test. And if he failed, and he'd get replaced. And that's exactly what happened.
Well, it's sort of sad. I'm reading through the 25th Amendment here real quick.
And by the way, real quick, Brad, for folks who are listening live, I have a link to the Fox News story featuring Eric Schmitt up today. So, Brad, thanks for flagging that for me. It's up right now.
No, well, I'm glad you picked up on that. I just thought it was sort of interesting because one of our Missouri senators essentially is the guy who is,
and it got a lot of attention on social media yesterday, Brad.
Right. This is Article 2, Section 1 of the 25th Amendment. Hold it now. No. What am I reading here? No. I'll pull this up later and pull it and go look specifically at the 25th Amendment. Okay. Other stuff to talk about. Okay, John, you talked about this last week and the situation going on in, I think we touched on this briefly, St. Louis County and Dr. Page, who's doing all this crazy stuff on his own. You know what I mean? There's a story yesterday about the fact that he entered in some new health care contract or something like that. And
I guess Anthem is replaced by United Healthcare now, and I guess the county executive made that decision unilaterally.
Right. And I see in government, how do you do that? Isn't there some structure in almost any government, county, city, state, municipal, that essentially would say, okay, this decision must go through the whatever it is, Board of Aldermen or the county council?
Or whatever the local governing board is. I think, so first of all, I'm no expert in county politics. I don't pay attention to county politics. But as I understand it, Brad, there's a whole lot of people and a powerful group of people who say that the county exec cannot do this, and I think we'll be making an issue of this. It's on, if you go to STL today, it's in the first panel of stories that the Post-Dispatch has. I know that Jane Duker on X.com has had plenty to say about this particular decision. I haven't followed the particulars, but as I understand it, the county had a contract for employee health care, and Sam Page has decided unilaterally to have one company get it over another company.
Which you wonder who bought him a lot of dinners, right?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I imagine that there's going to be people looking closely at that, as always.
Okay. Yesterday we talked about the Soda Museum, okay, which has been under scrutiny by the non-conservative people. Essentially, they're saying the Soda Museum is a place where nothing but conservative Republicans hang out, and I threw out the fact that the Soda Museum, I believe, was a not-for-profit. And one of our researchers here on staff here at the BJ Show gave me the official information. The Museum of Soda History is a 501c3 nonprofit accepting tax-deductible donations of old soda items.
Nice. So how much are you going to give, Brad? Don't you have some cans laying around? I know that you keep a very clean house, so you probably don't have a lot of cans laying around, but do you have any that you could donate?
Do you know what I have, which is sort of interesting?
Is it sort of interesting? Because I hope it's not uninteresting. Go ahead.
I have a 6-pack of clear Pepsi.
Oh, I was a freshman in high school when it came out, Crystal Pepsi, Brad.
Right. And this is in the white returnable bottles. They're the clear bottles. So in other words, you can see the clear Pepsi in all its glory. I have in the cardboard chipboard container that, like that had the handle on it. You put the 6 bottles in it, 3 on each side. I have a complete set of those, and I do not believe they've leaked. I believe it's intact. So you could probably use get a bottle opener and pop the top on that. It would go psh, and you take.
Brad, have you worked out? I'm sure this is a huge topic among your offspring. Have they decided who's going to get those when you bite the big one?
Yeah, the dumpster's going to get them. That's who's going to get them. That's most of the stuff I have. It'll end up in the dumpster.
Can't you see them standing there after a proper time of mourning, being like, So was Dad gonna drink these, or like why don't Crystal Pepsi?
Well, it's interesting because I don't know. I've never been. Have you ever been to the Soda Museum? I'll ask you that right up front. Okay.
No. You think I'm paying $8 or whatever it is to walk around a museum? I don't even drink soda.
Well, matter of fact, no, hold it. $8, according to this, our research staff says it's open Sunday through Thursday, 10 to 6, Friday and Saturday, 10 to 8:30. So it's not open on Sundays. And museum admission is $10.
You're kidding me.
This is according to research. Arcade admission is $15.
Arcade? What are you going to play? Oh, they have video games there, don't they?
Right. And if you do the combo, if you do the museum and the arcade admission, it's $20, and they do offer group discounts. Now, I ask you, if like, let's say some of your good friends came in from out of town and they haven't been in St. Louis, and they say, "Hey, show us some of the sights, John." Well, let's go down on Main Street. I'll take you to the Soda Museum. Would that be something that would come out of John Combest's mouth?
Yes, and here's why. Because let's say there's 4 of them. Let's say I got a group of college buddies coming in. First, I'm going to drop them off on one end of Easton Avenue, and I'm going to tell them I'm going to pick them up on the other end. By the time they get to the car, only one of them will be left, and I'll pay for him to walk through the Soda Museum.
John, you're dating yourself by calling it Easton Avenue because
it's not Easton Avenue anymore?
No, Easton doesn't exist anymore. It's been renamed, and it has initials to it now. So
is it JFK?
No, it's MLK.
Oh, FDR Boulevard.
No. Okay, also, I was challenged by something I said yesterday when I said, and someone called me and said, "You're wrong about the deal with Kamala." Okay, remember I gave the list of there were 6 firsts.
Yeah, what else is she?
Well, the interesting thing was I said in the last century, if she's elected, she will be the first president in the last century not to have any kids. And someone said, Harry Truman didn't have any kids. No, I researched that. Harry Truman had 1 kid. And if you go back through the history, you go back through, it's easily, you can go back and look at Trump. Obviously, he's got lots of kids with different women. If you go back, Obama's got his 2 daughters. If you go back even further, you got Bush. Matter of fact, one of his daughters is on TV, right? Isn't that Jenna Bush? Then you keep going, and you go back through Reagan. He had kids. Obviously Jimmy Carter had Amy Carter. You go through. LBJ, he had the Linda Bird, and
Billy Carter was kind of like a child that was under the auspices of Jimmy. Go ahead.
You go through, and matter of fact, FDR, I think, had 6 kids, and once again, it's people go like, well, how can that be? Once again, I'm not saying anything good or bad. I'm just saying it's another first. The first president. I went all the way back through FDR, through Woodrow Wilson, and all of those presidents had offspring. They had, at least one. And like I said, I think FDR held the record where he had 6 kids. And to the point where, once again, another interesting aspect of that. And I know people are going to get, so no, you're dinging Kamala because she's never had any kids? No,
that's not what you're saying. And anybody who says that's an idiot. Right?
I'm just saying it's another interesting aspect. And that was my 6th point of the 6 firsts that if she becomes president.
Thank God somebody corrected you on that. Now, one thing that nobody corrected you on is you were reading these Facebook comments when people are really upset about the Americans for Prosperity Missouri event. You said that there was here's what I don't believe, Brad. You were reading Facebook comments from all these angry people about the Soda Museum, and you said there was a comment from a girl named Mallory Box. Now, that sounds like something if you're going to call in a prank call, you're going to call in the OBGYN unit at St. John's, and you're going to be like, yeah, tell her it's Mallory Box. I'm in the same room as Samantha Snatch.
One of my favorite ones was we used to go to Fridays, and you'd get on the wait list, and before they had, they text you and little, coasters that lit up and stuff like that. They'd call you on the PA system, and they would be so formal. They go, the party, the Combest party.
Oh, yes.
And I always put my name as Brad Search. So they would go, the search party, we have a table for the search party. I'm sorry.
Thank goodness they don't check IDs for that. Now, I guess the statute of limitations has run out on this. For folks who don't know, Brad and I are both from beautiful North St. Louis County, specifically Spanish Lake. Brad, do you remember the restaurant Solo's?
Oh, yeah.
So when my parents would call in an order, my parents would always use a fake Italian name.
Really?
Because my parents were convinced that you got better service as a Garavelli or a Giordano than you would have saying you were a Combest. So I would go in, and before I was the designated run-in, the restaurant guy, and I'd say, like my mom would be like, okay, remember it's under Giordano or it's under Giovanni.
Really?
Yeah, they were absolutely convinced that like they were greeted when they would go in, they were greeted more warmly if they used a fake Italian name.
You know what? That's an interesting angle. That probably has some truth to it. You know what I mean?
Probably does, right? Like, are you going to give – and I mean, Brad, if you went into a kosher shop – in the 1940s, would you want to say you were Hildebrand, or would you want to say that you were Moishevitz?
Well, but Hildebrand could be Jewish as well too, because
a lot of
you
get my point.
Yeah, a lot of German Jews, but that and once again, I wonder if the same thing works with the Mexican restaurant.
Wait, that was Italian, that wasn't Mexican. It might, like if you said you were Figueroa and you had a carry out order, I mean, you might get a few extra nachos there, Brad.
Nothing wrong with a few extra nachos. Okay. We're going to take a break. Boy, this show is just full of useful
information. Can you say a prayer for me, Brad? Do I need to call the line on break?
You do. 25 God Squad, 25 God Squad. And people think already, I've had one prayer. I think I've got a second prayer on the line already. People think this is a joke, and people think that I'm just making it up. 25 God Squad is a for real phone number, and it works, and it takes you to me, Pastor Brad, who gives you, but all you have to do is just give me the name of the person you need a prayer for and what I'm praying for. And Pastor Brad will say a prayer for whoever is on the line. And in all sincerity, I mean, this is the new Brad. I'm
going to say a prayer for Boost 95.5 because you're about to put them out of business.
I don't.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?